In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. It is written that in the beginning there was an infinite void without shape or form. The best way that we can personify said void in this dimension is with water. In the midst of this void, an energy of maturity and intelligence, of which we call divine, uttered other words. The next one being, "Let there be light." And there was light. Soon after came other manifestations, one of which being the earth, to separate the waters. And because we share all of the elements of the earth, we too can call ourselves earth. Greetings and welcome to another step forward and upward, onward. Another brick onto the temple, another plank onto our foundation. This is the build. Before we go further into our discussion, I will bring in Brother Eli as he will start with his opening announcements.
Peace and paradise to everyone, all life that exists, known, known and unknown. The words we are expressing freely tonight are not meant to offend anyone. Our words are not meant to be in any competition with anyone else's wisdom. Your wisdom and understanding is yours alone. We are choosing to remain consecrated while being in the furnace of affliction. Blessings. Conquering ignorance is essential. Nobody is born wise. A person has to make serious efforts to develop the qualities needed to be able to speak and achieve mayat without falling into the twin traps of vanity and greed. The best that we can do for ourselves is to portray ourselves with a vigilant heart, a plain tongue, capable of satisfying God, because our entire existence rests on knowledge and not on belief. And in the ancient Kemetic book of Two Ways, it says that the causes of wrongdoing are ignorance and immaturity. And just recently, I received some amazing information from this nun while I was watching the video. And she said this: prayer isn't something you do, it's something that God does. that you are open to. And so the more you try to be open to God, as it were, surrendered to his will and receive him, his life flows into us in our prayers. I hope we can really think about that, because if God is an essence that sustains all of the physical world, everything is alive and everything exists because of the constant prayer of God. That is so amazing to me. Prayer isn't something you do, it's something that God does and that you're open to. And so the more you try to be open to God, as it were, surrendered to his will and receive him, his life flows into us in our prayers. Blessings.
I am thankful for that revelation brought to the build in regards to prayer. For there are many people who believe that they can memorize different methods of prayer, can teach and be taught prayer from men and men alone, as if it is a coursework, a class. There are even certain people in this world that have made it a monetized skill. Thankfully, we are brought to that revelation that we are indeed vessels in the relationship of this essence, which brings forth a humility that is like no other relationship. I want to continue on that power of prayer, or maybe even the power that ironically is a submission to the power of God through prayer. For there are many instances in many scriptures and texts that at the very moment man has ego add its etchings into something that is already perfect, they are punished for it. The first 5 books of the Bible, as we know as the Torah, speaks of Moses, and the miracles that were brought forth to help the Hebrew slaves in their exodus from Egypt. There was but one instance in all of the humility that Moshe possessed, where instead of waiting on the divine to part the seas for them to cross, he struck his staff into the ground. Because of that one action after the 40 years of being lost in the wilderness, Moses was still not allowed to cross the river Jordan into the land that was promised its people. That was one single mistake. We, in this human form, are far from perfect. We strive, however, for perfection. And in that striving, sometimes there is slipping, falling. That is the reason why we come as humbly as we can, void of ego, into the id of the I am. Humility is just as important as intelligence and seeking it. For if man sees his intelligence without searching for humility to dispense said intelligence, he will then label himself as greater than the source from which he obtained this knowledge and procedure from. For some, that is thought of as blasphemy, as a very dangerous thing. But here, where we pose onto the table evidence, watching over time the instances in which all things occur, we have seen these things not so much blasphemous as it is profane in regards to ego over the I am. Does this mean that in our physical days we do not accept ego? Does it mean that in our physical days, when we are not in this sacred space of which we are clothed in a sacred way, to present our claims and our evidence in an elegant form, void completely of ego? Though not completely, we do indeed clear ourselves. And how then do we clear ourselves? Through prayer and fasting, as proof that it is indeed God and God alone, that essence, that energy that sustains us this day. There are many different approaches towards being humble, but I have seen none greater than the prostration of a Muslim in a mosque. For even the Judeo-Christian will indeed bow on their knees and clasp their hands and lightly bow their heads. It is the Muslim that completely lowers its body without the ability to have sight above him as a means to show complete submission to the divine. It is one of the most beautiful, merciful actions in my limited existence on this planet that I have ever seen. It is difficult to maintain humility in a world that is literally addicted to ego. But we will continue on in trial, despite error, to reach as close as we can touch to that said perfection. Today is a very special day, for the first time, the build has a special guest. We are welcoming into our sacred space yet another builder, another person who has the diligence to maintain a certain humility, a human being who indeed has been tested for their resiliency, for their patience, for their long suffering, and has been seen fit and good in that person's doings towards maintaining the humility needed to reach Ma'at. All who are witnessing tonight, I bring to you Sister Lillian House. You are most welcome here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be amongst good people. Good evening to everyone.
Good evening. Good evening. So then, because this is the first occasion where we have had anyone into this sacred space, I must be very frank. I have come somewhat fresh and ill prepared. I say that in that order because I wanted to allow ourselves to be a vessel into this conversation so that whatever needs to be said would be brought in a very natural and organic way. That said, I do not have interview questions. There is no job to obtain. You are welcome here as a sister to two brothers, fellow builders here in the build.
Thank
I will just start just by asking, how have you been
you.
today?
All well. All is well. It's been a beautiful day. And I surely have rejoiced and been glad to be a part of it. I'm very thankful. Thank you
Mhm.
for asking. And may I ask, how have your day been?
We have been well. My family has been quite prosperous in their dealings regarding education. My youngest daughter has graduated today from high school. She has been studying online and has had struggles within one single course that has taken her months to have the time to accumulate, to complete, but she completed it today. So we are most grateful.
Yes, completion is the key. She stayed in the fight. She stayed in the race. She
Mm.
didn't give up. She didn't give in. And we're so thankful and honored, most of all, that the race isn't given to the swift, but the one that endured to the end. And
Yes, indeed.
she endured through all the troubles, the struggles, the trials. She showed herself approved to not be a quitter, but a fighter.
Yes,
Thank
indeed.
you for sharing.
Yes. And so eloquently, your voice brings to the build a balance that I and Brother Eli have been searching for so quite some time. Might I ask of perhaps a test of endurance, no matter how small or large, that you would like to share that would give that sense of balance in the attestation of humility?
Thank you for asking. I would definitely say that the first thing came to mind was faith, because it's something we can't see, it's something that we hope for, and it's a daily process. It's an all day process because we get tested, trials come our way. We all have endured some type of storm. Now, granted, all storms are different. No storms are the same because we are not the same. We are all individually made with our own way of being from the Creator. So, when a question like that comes to me, I definitely look at faith and keeping it in, no matter what situation you're going through, how hard it is, because if we can't endure the small things, how can we say that we can handle anything beyond that? So being tested is a daily thing from wherever it may come. You know, we have the north, the south, the east, and the west. Faith is that what we need to endure any fight, any circumstance, any situation, anything we go through. If you lose your faith, you've lost everything. One thing that I've come to understand is that it doesn't take a lot in order to be a winner. The winner comes by withholding what you have, such as your ground, to stand firm on what you know, to know who you are, and to know that no one can take away what you have, and that is integrity and the love that you have for yourself, because that's something that we all can acquire and have. But if you don't love yourself, do not expect anyone else or the world to love you, because you must love yourself. Have the faith to believe and understand that we all are going through. Just stay in there a little while longer and you will see better results in the end.
You speak of self love in a way that seems so entirely nurturing, as if there have been instances where you've had to educate people on how to love themselves. And one thing that we in the build, I and Brother Eli, wholeheartedly understand is that as we are teaching, we are simultaneously learning. Education is symbiotic and synergistic. That said, please share with us a way that, an instance where you have had to find a way to educate someone on how to love themselves and how you learned by teaching your own lesson.
You Is that a question? I'm
It
sorry.
is.
I
It
thought
is indeed a question. Yes.
I became very strong at a point in my life that I can stand firm on knowing that what faith is, how tests come about. And if you don't love yourself, then no one else will. Because the in life and throughout life, with going through struggles that I have sustained and maintained to be an overcomer, I'm not a victim to anyone or anything anymore. I'm an overcomer because I beat the odds and knowing that I had to love myself in order to be recognized as who I am. I don't have a low self esteem. I'm not going to let anyone beat me down, tear me down, and then step on me because I am somebody. We all are somebody. And I stood on the word, I stood on the promises, which will never return void. It's not even questionable nor debatable. And so, therefore, I had to help people in a low place where I was once at, knowing that throughout struggles, everyone has them, but it's how we sustain them in order to be victorious. So, love definitely is the first thing that I have people to understand. You have to look at yourself. Who are you? What are you created to do? We all are created in an image and we all have a place in our lives. You have to learn that in order to be who you are. Because if you're lost, how do you expect anyone else to find you and know who you are? So that's where I encourage people to find themselves at. Find yourself first, and therefore you can be a witness to others of being victorious and being an overcomer.
What would you say to someone who is yet to find themselves over the thin line between being a person who loves themselves and a person presumed to be selfish?
You have to find that peace that surpasses all understanding, which means everyone isn't going to understand you or who you are, but you have to understand yourself, who you are, what your purpose is, what plan do you have for yourself. Everyone has a future, everyone has a destiny, but if you don't come to realize what that is for yourself, you would never be able to find where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do.
Let me give an example. I would say that sometimes when I am talking, as Brother Michael spoke before, I also am listening.
Yes.
Just like when we point the finger, we have three fingers pointing back at us. So listening while we're speaking, because we also say that we are inspired by God. And recently, I am experiencing just eating raw vegetables and fruit. Last week, I honestly discovered that all we need to sustain ourselves on this earth is just vegetables and fruit and water. And everything else is just, I would say, icing on the cake. I posted on Facebook the other day that the average adult only needs a half a teaspoon of salt per 24 hours. At the bottom of the picture, I had a family that was praying to God at their Thanksgiving dinner. So I put the picture next to each other, how much salt that God requires the human body to sustain itself on an optimal level compared to the culture that we exhibit. That is the same as entertainers or sports players, a boxer, getting on his or her knees, praying to God before they fight someone else. It is not loving to God's love. The things that we do, because we pray for God's help. And God said that we are destroyed from the lack of knowledge. And since you reject knowledge, I will curse up to the third generation. So when brother Michael and I speak about some things and I get to talking, I listen. And I remember this was a few weeks ago, I spoke about it just popped in my head about a temple. And a lot of times I like to use affirmations or words to inspire me because the human mind and the human emotions waver. They are up one day and they are down. So we must have something to remind ourselves of the purpose of why we are existing. That is why I tell people to watch the sun. Don't necessarily watch humans, but watch the sun because the sun will always keep its word. The moon, the stars, the galaxies, existence itself refuses to be disobedient. And Brother Michael, you spoke about um, sometimes we have this ego, and Moses served God for 40 years, but Moses struck that rock one time, therefore not allowing him to go to the other side.
Mhm.
As you know, before, Brother Michael, we said that we're going to have a pen and a piece of paper and take notes.
Mhm.
So, one of the things that reminded me is that some things can make mistakes and some things cannot make mistakes. For example, if you have one oxygen or a blood clot in your body, just one, it can cause more damage than if you severed your entire leg in a war. So, yes, Moses was allowed to be near to the most powerful force in existence. I mean, think about such disrespect. Moses went to the burning bush. And Sister House, the reason why we call this the burning bush, because just imagine being in the desert and seeing a dry bush on fire, yet is not consumed. That means, despite your environment, you will remain. So, back to Moses. Moses got the opportunity to see a burning bush. And another thing, the reason why we hold the high esteem on this particular channel is that Moses was commanded to take off his shoes because he stood on holy ground. Now, God did not say, Moses, when you put back on your shoes, you must be perfect. So we are demanding that in this particular space that we represent perfection at all times, period. Because again, if you go to a bar, if you go to all these other places, we do what needs to be done at these places without wavering. I have yet to see a club turn off its music or stop selling alcohol. So we see the individuals when they go to this space that they maintain the culture of that space. So God demand us to have something that is for him, period, because we give everything else respect. Another example, we can say, if you had to go visit the president, who is nothing but another human being, you will be commanded to be on your best behavior. There will be a serious investigation, a search, and there will be guards around in order for you to present yourself in front of another human being, what we consider the president. And that's why most people, I don't have an understanding when it comes to God, that when they look for a home, they look at the kitchen, they look at the bathroom, they look at their bedroom, the master bedroom. They do all these things and they are so excited and they're furnished this new home. But guess what? Most of these people who claim to love God do not even have a prayer room. What nerve? What nerve? All of this that we have for the world, but we don't have one spot. In the old generation, they had a closet. So even a closet. So the thing about this is we must at some point before it's time to die to really serve someone who loves us. And I discovered something, Sister House, from this nun that I don't know if you heard it or not because I read it earlier and I will read it again. She said, prayer isn't something you do, it's something that God does that you're open to. And so the more you try to be open to God, as it were, surrender to his will and receive him, his life flows into us in prayer. So if we think about this existence, and also, even if an individual only can stay for 2 minutes or 5 minutes, at least they have visited a space that is dedicated to perfection, to the best of our ability, because Jesus says, be ye perfect as our Father in heaven in perfect. After that, he said, well, stop being perfect. So at some point, we are demanded to create something for God. We have coffee shops, we have movie theaters, we have funeral homes, we have hospitals, we have doctors who specialize specifically on certain surgeries. Yet, we cannot have a space, no matter if we are right or a sinner, that we can go into where it's perfect and we maintain the space while being in that, might be praying to God or might not. Just go to a space. So we are trying our best to do what the world is not choosing to do. Because if you go online, the ones with the most views are doing something they may not agree with in their 90s. And that's why I remind people who visit this space, yes, we might be boring. However, the things that we are doing here, you will appreciate in your 90s compared to when you were younger and people invite you to do foolishness. And then you were older and you look back at the behavior that you participated in, and now you regret because you are older. We exist because everything else exists. So, back to another example as I was going into, Moses was given an opportunity, like a cell, to go into the brain or the heart. This guy was in a civilization that did whatever it wanted. So all of a sudden, he was invited to speak to God as a man speaketh to his friend. Then that should be impressive, number one, that you should be careful because no one can say they spoke to God. Now, Moses was invited to go to the most powerful civilization on earth and then watch his God destroy it before his eyes. And then Moses got the opportunity to see something so vast as the ocean to part so his brothers and sisters can travel through it on dry land. All of this, Moses still didn't have enough faith for God. How dare you? And that's why the Bible are our example. When God show you miraculous things, and then you have the nerve to go back to the things that got you in trouble in the first place, so be it. So when you come to God, God is not a joke. God is not a clown. Even Christ, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, he had to surrender. And then God sent him to hell first. How dare you? And then Jesus got the opportunity to go to his Father after going to hell first. So when you go to the one that ceased to sleep or rest or have slumber, think about this. Light travel at the rate of 186,000 miles per second. So when you look at a star, you're looking at the past, yet it remains in its purpose. The Earth, 6 sextillion tons, a unit followed by 21 ciphers or circles, constantly spins. She performed her task. Period. I have yet to see the Earth says, I've been doing this for 13 billion years. Let me take the weekend off. I have yet to see the sun, which is 93 million miles away, that says, I've been doing this for trillions of years. Let me just chill for one moment. Even the heart, our cells, the blood cells are in vessels. Those vessels in each of our bodies stretch out to the length of 60,000 miles. And the blood travels from the bottom of your toes to the tip of your mind and your brain a little over 3 minutes. Even when we sleep, even when we party, even when we doing foolishness, even when we pray. So all of our existence is obedient, period, because they know the power of God. And here come us humans. Here we go. We get the opportunity to bend things, to make lights, to make microphones, all these miracles. And look at our faith. As soon as something go wrong, look at what we do. We are so upside down and inside out that someone can do something for you, good for you, for 30 years. And if they have the nerve to make one mistake or do something bad for you, what do you think you're going to remember? That one bad deed. Who are we? We are a mess. So, yes, this space, which goes on for 1 hour or a little more, we try our best, period, to do and represent what we feel the best. And yes, you can go offline and do whatever, but we are trying to make a space that represent what God, because all of existence, stars and universes and multiverses and all this is consistent. We have yet to see anything waver. Even when you read King David, he said, this life is consistent. Men and kings and rulers come and go, but the earth is going to still be here. And here we are, 3 to 4,000 years later, and we're still seeing the consistency and the love of God. That's my piece. Blessings.
Sister House, uh, if you would be so kind, we would love to hear your insight, if you'd like to share, in regards to humility, but also we keep this circle open for you to inquire anything of us in regards to things you think this build would benefit from for people who are watching.
Consistency is the key. Ever since I met Elias, that's the main thing that be the topic of our discussion. However, it may go when we have a often have communication with each other, and he builds on that constantly. That's why I just can't even stop smiling about it. He is one that stands firm every single day about people and consistency, how their lives are. If you ever want to hear the truth about it, speak about consistency is the one that he is the one that you need to speak with, because he stands very firm on that. He just touched on so many things that I just I almost got up and started running, because when him and I communicate, it don't be often nor daily. But when we do communicate, that's the main objective of our communication, understanding, looking back at how things are in relation to now. This is my phrase, how I say it in the Bible days. They everyone did everything under God's Son back then, and if we are who we say we are, and know the word like we say that we do, we will see those changing times still today. Nothing has changed. People are the same today as they were then. People did the same things. It may be a season where you see it, but trust and believe it's here. We see it. The signs of the times are here. And that will let anyone know for who they are that the time is near. Once again, his consistency, having that space, having that quiet place, having that moment, it's priceless. It's very priceless. And he taught me, Elias have taught me so much that I've never even given him credit for. But at this time, just to acknowledge him and speaking so many powerful things that he has spoken over me and to me, it
Sister
has
House,
allowed me to
Sister House, you
reflect.
already know you violating. Who we gonna thank?
I thank God. I thank
There we
God.
go.
Yes, most of all. But I thanked him in the
I get
beginning.
no credit.
No, you don't. And you never do. I surrender all. You never do. As we know, God gets the credit for everything, but he used you to speak to me with the things that more than likely I was hearing, but wasn't adhering to. And when you spoke to me the things that he needed for me to receive, that's the credit that I'm saying at this time, because he used you as a human vessel to speak what he had been speaking all along that I wasn't receiving.
And I will again to say that God allowed my vocal cords to
Ye-
move.
Yes,
God give me the breath to breathe. And
yes,
also,
yes,
as we spoke earlier, as I speak, I listen as well. So
yes,
I'm always submitting to the all of all, because I didn't create my own thoughts. I didn't even create the circumstance when I'm talking to someone.
yes,
There's a God that created the day. He
yes,
created when you're going to meet the person. He created the concept of the conversation that you're having. I am obedient to all.
yes,
Also, Brother Michael, I wanted to add in is that you also have the nuns who completely lie down flat while they're praying, and also other organizations. So Camille's talking about the other groups. But yes, ma'am, it's just that everything, the vision, the hair, I do nothing. The heart, the blood. I mean, I can't even, let me see, I can't even tell my fingernail to grow. I
no,
can't even put lint in my pocket. I mean, everything is given to us. All things, even my image. God created this image. He
yes,
created the smile, the vision. All of existence is from God. And I will never take credit
no,
because I didn't even wake myself up.
no, you didn't.
I, matter of fact, did not even drive to the location to see you at work. It was all in the mercy of God's
Yes, it was.
guidance. So we all submit.
Yes, yes. But Brother Michael, that's exactly what I'm saying. You see that right there? That's enough right there to just be inspired, because he's not. It's not about self. It's not about him, and he speaks the truth. God uses him. And that's what's so inspirational to me. And that was my point right there. And I thank you. Thank you so much. It gives me energy and it gives me joy. That's what I appreciate with him, his conversation and who he is. My God, it's awesome. I just can't say much. It's just awesome.
Well, that was more than I had anticipated. And that's the reason why I wanted this to be an organic experience. I did not want to write down a single question. I did not want to prepare a single or multiple answers. That truly is the power of God, because it was a flowing energy that continues throughout the sacred space. We thank you so much for being here with us. Wholeheartedly do. I have but one last question for you, Sister House. If you would, could you tell us about how you found your spirituality?
I would say that God did exactly what he said that he was going to do. When, I'm just going to take it all the way back. Even before I understood what my spirituality was, along with my purpose, God knew it. As I continued to grow wise, his presence being in my life and all the things that I endured put me in a place where I am today. I just can't even explain it. It's just the God that I serve, what he has done for me, what he has given me, the knowledge, the understanding, the wisdom to understand what I'm reading, understanding, and knowing, and the people that he has blessed to be in my path with where I am today. As we often say, but what understanding do we get out of it? When we were once a babe, we had that milk. We were on that milk. But as you grow wiser, you get off the milk and you start eating real food. That's the thing with me, with God. I grew up. He had me to become very wise and knowledgeable of where he wanted me to be with his word. And that has sustained me and kept my mind stayed on him to be who I am and where I am today.
Very thankful for that response, and even more thankful for the witness, the viewer that will one day come to this particular podcast and hear that voice, not ours, not even yours, but God's voice through us, that will bring that person closer to that essence and energy. We are going to come to our close of the liturgical part of our builds, but I definitely want to say once again, we are thankful for your presence here in this sacred space, and we definitely hope that there will be more interactions in the future where we can have our triangle here, our build of a indeed balance. Indeed. The world loves ego more than it loves the still voice. It loves and gives more attention to the boisterous ones, the bullies, the wretched are celebrated. However, being children of God, we realize that one that is the way, the truth, and the life, and that light, we are children of that same light. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, this particular time right now, the Advent has been occurring. Advent being the anxious waiting for the Messiah. Hanukkah or Hanukkah is also happening at this very time. And in much the same vein, the blood runs through them as well. There are also some who, like Brother Eli mentioned earlier, do indeed watch only the sun. And even they have forged sacred spaces and have seen favor in the unity that has provided. I say all of that to say this: to believe that the world is primordial, as in a good and an evil that is absolutely necessary, there are many lines that blur between that black and white. There are many different hues in between those dimensions. And that is the reason why we have dimensions in the first place. And that is the reason why, dare I say it, the darkness and the light are both essential. For without it, we would not have dimension. Too much darkness and too much light are equally blinding to our senses. There is a balance in knowing that there are people that have yet not come to this realization that may one day find themselves and see more of God within themselves, but are in need of the guidance to bring them towards a sense of seeking the most perfection that they could achieve here on earth. I thank you for being a part of that journey for them before they even arrive. I am thankful for them. As the light is and always will be, in its humility, in its stillness, we must understand one very, very specific thing: that the candle cannot complain against the darkness and the harshness. It instead emits itself and then admits to itself that it is everything that it needed. It is the light, and we are that light. We will not blow away this candle from us, for that would be against our purpose. And being able to show and prove that we are, by these vessels and the energy and essence that courses through us, indeed this light, we do not blow it away, but take it in our bodies, so that we will share this energy through our hearts, through hugs, through handshakes, to people and beings, so that they may one day see the truth of God. And so we bring this in, and we show beyond the shadow of a doubt that we are not harmed. Peace and blessings be unto any and all who have bear witness and who will bear witness to this podcast and many more of them. Blessings.
Blessings. And thank you, Sister House.
Blessings.
Thank you very much. And also, if you ever want to visit again, just please bring any questions like concerning health, because we talk about health, diet, fasting, and the ability to have the optimal life experience So we deal with everything. And even if you do not agree with certain things, because we are not a monolithic people or a species, and that's how we learn, because we all don't know it all. So it is a blessing to disagree with anything. But when you bring information, we will also document it and do research. And we also respect the findings of any disagreements that we have. But disagreements is honored and research is honored, because we are trying to get an understanding. Like the Bible says, in all thy getting is get understanding, because a lot of times we're suffering due to ignorance. So again, thank you. And if you have any last words, we'll be honored to hear before we close. Thank you, Sister House.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you all. Thank you.